So first we had just our standard model that we came out with, which was, in our launch in early December, which was this ability to farm volatility. You would come in, you'd create a pod, you'd add your liquidity to the pod, and then you'd charge this fee to the arbitrageurs that come in and out of the pod, and generate that yield purely for the LPs. Then we added some more game theory to it with our green arrows update. And what that enabled people to do is just to wrap into the pod, but not add LP, and benefit just from a portion of the fees being generated, going back into that, basically the single side wrap to what we call the P token. So you could wrap into a pod and benefit from those people that were LPing and that constant arbitrage. You would get a portion of that. But in return, you wrapping in and out was also creating fees for the LPs. So the LPs were sort of there to attract both the arbitrage, but also to attract people to wrap into the pod, because as the pod expands and contracts, they're also basically earning fees from that. So it added this extra layer of game theory where it was completely optional, but we've seen basically every pod has done this since we've enabled the option, is to give some of the yield back to single side stakers to encourage them to wrap in. And it's everything that we're doing is basically an experiment in this game theory, like this, these so-called pods hadn't existed before. So really everyone's experimenting and learning on the job. Some pods, have done extremely well. Some haven't done as well. Some have ended up with far too many people being on the single side wrapping versus LPing. And some the opposite. Some haven't really been able to attract anyone to come in and do that single side wrapping. But ultimately the yield generation was still being funded by people adding LP. And to add LP, you basically need to either be bullish on both the tokens that you're adding in LP, or you have to basically convert, or you're trading your impermanent loss that you would get on the LP position in exchange for the P's yield.
So even though this is profitable,
it's quite niche to find people that are going to be bullish on both those pairing assets to provide that LP. Most people, they want their token, they want to earn yield on it, and they want full exposure to that. They don't want to split their exposure and add this LP. So what this leveraged volatility farming is going to do is remove the need to be reliant on users being bullish on both the assets. So what does that mean? It means we're basically splitting people. You have two subsets, or it's two groups of users now. People who are bullish on the P token, or just the token, whatever the token's going to be, and then people that are either bullish on the paired asset, or if the paired asset is just like a stable coin, I just want to earn yield. They're not interested in speculating on the market. They just have stable coins and they want to farm these stable coins. And then what our contract will do is basically bring those two users together and add LP. Once they're combined. Now, the reason why we called it leveraged volatility farming, is effectively it is a lending pair that we're setting up, with the supplier to the lending pair is supplying the paired asset. So let's say the stable coin, and the person that's got the P token, who's bullish on the P token, effectively borrows through the lending pair the paired asset to add as LP. The collateral for that debt position is the LP itself. So in the LP, because it's a Uniswap V2, or like the constant product liquidity pair, in the LP you have 50% token and 50% debt. And effectively 50% paired asset is the debt. Half of the collateral is the debt token and is collateralizing itself. So it becomes extremely difficult to liquidate it versus your standard leverage system where you're putting up, a collateral to borrow a separate debt token, and the volatility between those two, you could end up in a bad debt position. But in our case, the debt token is being added as part of the collateral, so it's collateralizing itself in that way. Anyway, the result is that the user gets this leveraged volatility farming. So the fact that they're borrowing the paired asset and adding it as collateral, they're effectively doubling their farming position. If we're just going with the standard position, let's say they have $5,000 worth of P token, they borrow $5,000 worth of USDC, they now are farming volatility with $10,000, even though they only had $5,000 they put up front. So they're leveraging their volatility output. And so long as the yield that they're generating is more than half than the interest rate that they're paying on the paired asset, they're effectively creating they've got a net positive position in that case. So just some numbers with it also helps to see that, okay, well, I've got a $10,000 farming position now, whereas I only put up $5,000 worth of collateral or upfront cost, and my debt is half of my farming position, and that's why I can pay up to 2 times the interest on my debt and still be net positive in that yield that I'm generating.